Thank you very much, Sylvia, for your insights on soil testing, and I'm sure farmers have learned a lot from you. Let's move on to our next story. Pastoral communities living in the country have, in the recent past, lost a significant number of their animals due to inadequate pasture and rainfall. But this trend could soon be a thing of the past if these communities embrace the controlled grazing system, as demonstrated by the Maasai community living in the Mara River Basin. Sylvia, yes. Do you think this way of farming, especially by pastoral communities?
Meet 25 years old Daniel and Evelyn Mpaso, the founders of Enenkishu Conservancy in the Mara Basin. The two family members contributed 100 and 173 acres of their lands respectively, together with 6 other family members, to form the 600-acre Enenkishu Conservancy that is now credited with changing the lives of their community members for good.
The reasons why we formed this conservancy is because we as the Maasais, we used to have a lot of cattle here, but the cattle was not benefiting us. We had a lot of land, but we were not using the land accordingly.
Ngishu imetusaidia ya kwamba zamani tulikuwa tunahamahama, nyasi ilikuwa mingi, hata maziwa ya kuuza hatukuwa tunapata mingi, lakini kwa saa hii maziwa inapatikana kwa wingi. Na ng'ombe zimepata afya.
In the Maasai community, livestock such as cattle, goats and sheep are the primary source of income. The livestock is traded for other livestock, cash or livestock products such as milk or meat. Individuals and clans establish close ties through giving or exchange of cattle, but for Daniel and Evelyn and other members of their family, perennial drought had visited and foretold misery on the family before they decided that something had to change.
We decided that we are going to reduce the number of cattle, and we decided that everybody is going to have 30 cattle in his own 100 acres. And so that also the remaining part or the remaining portion can sustain also the wildlife and sustain the cattle at the same time.
The family, with the help of the Mau Mara Serengeti Sustainable Water Initiative and the Wide World Fund for Nature, agreed that the new conservation vision should be tried to address sustainability of their land, the entire Mara Basin, and add value to both income and conserving vegetation. The approach was picked so that the combination of wildlife tourism and sustainable rotational grazing will create a win-win situation for both the Maasai landowners and the wildlife of the Maasai Mara ecosystem.
So we are coming up with a way of doing that, putting your cattle together and having a management plan, a grass management plan, a grazing plan, so that you go around with your cattle, they eat on one place, in the meanwhile in another place your grass is growing.
The management, together with facilitators and elders, brokered a deal that saw the reduction in domestic livestock herds sizes within the core conservation area. The family has adopted an holistic approach to grazing and pasture management within the conservancy, an approach that is not far removed from the traditional Maasai system, where the elders will decide which area were grazed and which were left for leaner times. The Kundi Moja, or one-herd system, is where the landlords control grazing in a small area in a tight formation of their herds before moving on to the next designated area.
We are structurally trying to show that you can be able to keep wildlife and livestock together for sustainability of both socio and also land.
These short grass areas, once vacated by cattle, became hotspots for short grass-loving herbivores. Water catchments are planned and constructed with these grazing patterns in mind, ensuring that there are close watering points for both cattle and wildlife.
Water is better used and the environment is better maintained. And people at the end of the day, they have a better income because their cattle is growing better.
With healthier and better fed livestock, the project has also seen these farmers benefit from better prices from their livestock while reduce animal-wildlife conflict. Better organization has also meant improved marketing, as Mara Beef, one of the investors in the conservancy, has agreed to buy their livestock throughout the year, offering them better and more consistent prices.
Sylvia, you've watched that story. What are your views about the pastoral community?
Yeah, I think it's very good that they are moving in that way. Of course, now we have a lot of land pressure, and with the buildings and farmland is getting smaller and smaller over the years. And I think what they have done is very good and very commendable, because that's the only way that it's going to be more sustainable. Because we don't want them to be struggling coming all the way with their cows to Nairobi. It makes more sense for them to have the paddocks and to make good use that way. Because when you do like the rotation, you're actually giving the grass to grow, the microorganisms in the soil are even given time to increase. And with that you find, that many cows will be able to eat in a small area, and still that same area can still be used to also, apart from keeping the animals, to also have some food crops.
I also think controlling the way animals graze will also improve on their health and also what we eat. What is your point on the same, especially now that we've seen so many cows in our estates that even don't have a herder? Do you think it's safe for those cows to just eat anything?
No. I mean, it's very unfortunate, when you see, the animals in the, garbage dumps, you don't know what they're eating in there. Maybe they're ingesting some chemicals, some paper bags, and these animals are dying. And even those who survive will end up in the slaughterhouse. And we are going to go buy that meat, and it's also going to affect our health negatively, And we are lucky so far. If you think about Kenya, most of our cows are actually grass-fed. We are not really, having them, controlled. So we are actually lucky that so far our animals are eating well. And I think the idea of them being in their paddocks is actually very beneficial, not just to the animals, but also to our health in general. Yeah.
Let's move on to our next story. Coffee farmers in Nandi County are calling on both the national government and the county government to come to their rescue and help without middlemen who are exploiting them.
The majority of families in Kenya depend on agriculture for their livelihoods. However, high and volatile food prices have had severe negative consequences for the welfare of the majority. Improving the efficiency of the agricultural markets is therefore a priority. For ages, the agricultural supply chain have been dominated by middlemen with substantial market power. Their high margins have continued to distort the market by driving a wedge between the prices paid to farmers and by final consumers. Meet Mzee Raymond Chelule, a retired civil servant from Tinderet, Nandi County, who feels he has never received a fair price for his coffee because of excessive exploitation by middlemen.
There are middlemen who are exploiting us as farmers, who are really thriving on our sweat as farmers to maximize on the profit of coffee, which should actually go to the farmer, who is the producer.
Unfortunately, for farmers like Chelule, market power lies in the fact that middlemen are better informed about market conditions, especially the prices further down the supply chain. This raises the possibility that if the farmers are well informed, better access to market information can increase the prices that they receive from the middlemen, thereby increasing their income and helping them make better production decisions.
The past history of coffee in Kenya has not been very good in terms of pricing. And I am only hoping that there will be more reforms in the coffee sector, particularly regarding the marketing of coffee, to allow farmers at some stage to sell their coffee direct to the export market. That is when they can fetch the better prices. But as at the moment, we are still relying on middlemen.
A number of recent empirical papers have investigated the effects of better market information on producer prices, although results are mixed. However, few of these studies are able to model explicitly how a farmer can use price information when bargaining with a middleman. It is normally assumed that a farmer receives a higher price when he is informed because he is risk averse.
We're only hoping the government will in some case will do reforms to get rid of these middlemen, both in coffee and even in the tea sectors.
Despite all these challenges, the vibrant reforms that have been implemented in Kenya's coffee sector have encouraged smallholders to cultivate the cash crop with renewed vigor. However, some smallholder farmers had in the recent past abandoned coffee growing, citing mismanagement of cooperative marketing societies A raft of reforms that have allowed direct marketing of the commodity have encouraged farmers to cultivate the crop with gusto.
Ruiru 11 variety seems to be the best variety for this area. Well, although now we have this Batian variety, but I have not done very well with that plant. And I feel maybe the farmers have been taken for a ride by introducing that variety, which is now dominating the dominant variety supplied by the Coffee Research Foundation.
Mzee Chelule harvests and pulps his own coffee, then takes it for milling. This ensures that the quality of his coffee is not compromised, and this is how he has been able to attract better prices for his coffee.
I'm marketing my coffee now to Coffee Management Services mill in Eldoret. Yeah, where they mill my coffee and market for me.
Chelule also tells me the key to high quality coffee and bumper harvest from every stem is to now reach the crop through application of manure and timely weeding. When coffee is well fed, the stem do not shed leaves even in dry season, providing cover for the seeds and ensuring they are of high quality.
If you talk in terms of sherry coffee, you would get around 60 kilograms per coffee of sherry coffee, an equivalent of that. That is the price as at now, which I feel is low, because in the market they could be selling it at over 100 shillings per kilo. Yeah, which goes to middlemen and the millers and what have you. The farmers should have had a far higher share of that price.
Chelule believes that improving efficiency in the agricultural markets could have a major impact on the welfare of the majority of the farmers and the country.
I want to lament that farmers all over Kenya have a very low deal in terms of their produce. If you go to maize, that's the problem. You come to tea, I think that problem is also there, although it is not magnified. Even in coffee, it is there. So if really agriculture is the backbone of Kenya's economy, then the government, the farmers should really be looked after in terms of pricing of their products.
Sylvia, you are a farmer. Have you met with middlemen?
Yeah, all the time.
And how is it? How has it been?
It has been very frustrating for us, because what happens with the middleman, in fact, this is how we normally say it na wakulima wengine. This is someone hana shamba, hana kitu. He wakes up in the morning and all he has to do is look for the end market. Anapata soko, si ndio? Alafu anakuja kwetu and he decides how much he's going to buy the goods for. We actually have no say. He comes, he says, sasa kwa soko, bei ya cabbage is 10 shillings a piece.
Is there a way you can either believe what they are saying? Or do you have a way of, or the farmers even don't have an idea of what the market...
Not all farmers. When I'm talking about the farmer, mwenye ako mashinani, unaona, he didn't even have a smartphone to actually go online and find out what is the prices of things. When you check in the newspaper, there's normally a page that says the prices of things from the market, the main prices. Farmers don't have access to that newspaper. They don't have access to any online forums. Yeah. So you find huyu mkulima, he has no idea what the market price is. He has no capacity to take these vegetables to the soko himself. Labda hana barabara, maybe it's muddy, or the road is not good, or maybe he's too far from the market. And he's there with his 1,000, 2,000 cabbages. What choice does he have? So the middleman is quite powerful. Akiingia kwa shamba, he just needs to say, cabbage ni 10 bob. What do you have to say? If you don't agree to that 10 shillings, you're just going to either feed those cabbages to your cows or watch them rot. So you find the middlemen have actually come in to fill in a gap that was meant to be filled in by the government a long time ago.
Talking of the government,
Yeah.
do you think the government is doing enough now that these farmers are calling on the government to come to their rescue?
They're not doing anything. Forget about saying doing enough. I'm yet to see the government coming in and say, these are the prices of the different commodities. And the only way the government can be able to do that is if they're going to be part of the whole value chain. We talked about previously how the government is giving farmers the inputs, yeah? they're giving them the chemical fertilizer or whatever to put into their soil. Why is it they only end their work at that place? Why is it they're not giving proper extension services? Why is it at the time of harvest, the government is also not there to buy these things from the farmers? And don't tell me that they don't have the capacity to do it. They can. They're just not doing it. Because if the government was able to be there in the whole part of the value chain, straight from production all the way to the, marketing, farmers would never suffer in this country. But that's where the middlemen have come in. They have, stepped into that huge gap, and they're making a kill.
And do you think this space that giving them this opportunity to oppress the farmers, is it a policy issue by the government, or where exactly do you think the shortfall is?
I'm not really sure, because I've never heard if there's a policy to protect the farmers across from the whole value chain. There could be a policy, it's not being implemented, but if there's none, then I recommend it has to be there.
There was one, there was one policy that was saying that for potato farmers,
Yes.
potatoes should not be put in this long bag.
Yes, I remember that, yeah. Like the double sack.
Yes, it's still there.
Yeah.
So does it mean government just put out policies there and no one implements them?
There's no one to implement it. There's no one to implement it. The local agricultural officers are not doing anything. They're not walking around. And also, as much as with the government, again, we are not putting them to task. I'm going to bring that up again. We are not going back to tell the local officers, look what the brokers are doing. You need to come and put a stop to it. We as farmers, we feel like we are so low, we are so desperate, and no one can come to our help. But why can't we also just come together one day? When the brokers come, we tell them, Hapana, we are not selling those things to you at this price. This is the price. And if farmers can work together and we come together and say we are not going to accept exploitation anymore, brokers will have no choice but to buy it at fair prices. Okay. Yeah.
So that means we are all to blame?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move to our next story. With the rising population and the high demand for land, farmers in Kisii and Nyamira County are being urged to emulate modern ways of farming in order to remain food secure. Sylvia, what are some of these modern ways of farming that these farmers in Kisii and Nyamira County can now employ in their farms, in their small farms?
Okay. When you think about it, the issue of small parcels of land is not just in Kisii. It's actually almost everywhere. So the land has become smaller and smaller, and we have to become, more creative and more innovative on how we should be growing our food. Something I want to ask my fellow wakulima na Wakenya, yani mahindi, maize, kwani tumerogwa? Must we grow maize even on an eighth of an acre and get nothing at the end of it all, yeah? So we just have to think about different ways on how to use our small land. Number one, stop planting only maize. There are so many varieties of food you can be able to plant. Something we normally do with our farmers is to teach them how to grow their own kitchen gardens that will make you food secure. On an eighth of a land, you can actually have enough food to grow food that a whole family will be able to eat. A family of 7, 8 will be able to eat all year round. Bora tu mko na maji kidogo for watering. You don't have to grow, too much of one thing at a go. You have to also look at the seasons. Like now, you can be able to grow a few rows of maize. You put your beans, weke malenge, put your pumpkins there, yeah? Do your green vegetables, do your onions on a small piece of land. And most farmers that we're working with, and even myself, I can confess, that food is normally more than enough for me. So I'm actually able to actually sell my surplus. So I have enough for myself, and not just food as I'm speaking, but then food that is highly nutritious. Because here I have a lot of variety in the small land. I didn't plant only maize, not just carbohydrates. I put in my vitamins and proteins in there. Number two, when you think about how you can be able to, make good use of small land, there's something we call vertical farming, yeah? Say, for example, you have half an acre. You can actually have a small fish pond there that is going to be on maybe an eighth of an acre. And when you're changing that water, yeah, you're actually able to use that water that is high in nitrates to put it back into your soil.
But don't we need someone to teach them these things?
Yes, of course. That's where we are talking about the extension officers, and even, like even us here talking, and we're trying to teach them something here, So we have the exposure. They have the exposure on the radio. They have the exposure here. We are talking to them and the local officers and working together. So if you're able to actually, have your little fish pond, you put your few cows, then you have your few goats and chicken. Isn't that food security? On a very small piece of land. We have done it and we have proved that it is possible. So when you think about also vertical bags, you don't have to grow your skooma down. Nowadays you have these bags where you can be able to grow your bags, your skooma, your spinach, managu, terere, in vertical bags going up. So you can find an area, actually we've done it, an area of 1 by 1 meter can hold a vertical bag that holds 150 plants.
Different plants.
Yes, your skooma, you can do your skooma and spinach on the side. Alafu hapa juu you can put your carrot, your beetroot, your, like on the side you can also put managu. On top you put a bit of terere. One bag is actually more than enough for a family of 7. Yes? Yeah. Okay. So we have to start thinking outside the box.
Okay. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yeah. If we can't think outside the box, we'll continue complaining about food insecure or food insecurity in the country. But with these new ideas, I think we can feed this country.
Exactly.
Okay. Moving to our last story, dairy farmers in Kenya will soon see the cost of feeding their animals come down after a group of investors introduce a fast silage baling machine in the country. The machine can bale 400 bales of silage in a day, with one bale going for 5,000 shillings. This will help small-scale farmers with small pieces of land access silage. What is your take on this story?
When I think about it, I'm happy about the technology. And, like when you think about the farmers, the idea is to make things better and easier for us. And, we also want to make sure that the dairy farmers have access, talk about accessibility to the feeds, which has not been easy in the past. But when you think about that price, my question is, at what cost, is this bale, and will the local farmer be able to really be able to sustain that amount to actually feed the cows well, for the cow to actually give them the good milk and the good returns that they had hoped for. If we just think about even just the local farmers right now, even with the dairy mill, we actually don't feed our cows very well because the cost is high. We cannot afford it. Yeah, a good Frisian cow I hear, I'm not very sure, but from a few vets I've talked to, the good Frisian cows, one cow that is big and is feeding well can actually take almost a quarter or a half of the bag, one, per day. So you want to tell me, how will these farmers be able to afford that? And also we have to start thinking about it. The maize, can't we make this fodder from sorghum and millet that doesn't actually require that much rain? Most of our maize in Kenya needs 7 to 8 months to mature. And when you talk about the sorghum and millet with our depressed rains, it actually takes 3 to 4 months, and you have your fodder. So the things we need to be asking ourselves, also the real cost.
Also talking about maize, this brings a competition between us as human beings and the animals.
Yeah.
We are now competing for the same crop.
The same crop, yeah.
So what does this mean for the country's food security going forward?
Yeah. We have to start with a shift in our minds. Must we eat maize? Who said maize is the only food that we have to put? We can make ugali from cassava, from sorghum and millet. We can start eating more pumpkins, malenge, the things that are high in vitamins people have forgotten to eat. Some children have never even seen a real cassava plant. The tuber yakugu, the one we boil and eat. Some children have never seen it. Why is it we are not going back to eat the foods that are even indigenous and original to our continent? Maize is not original to Kenya. That's why it came from South America, where they have rainforests. It's raining all year. Here, we're depending on 7-month maize, 8-month maize, with a few weeks rain. It's not sustainable. So we have to have a shift in my minds, yeah. And our diet has to change also.
Do you think we have an alternative, especially for both humans and animals, in terms of where do they get these nutrients then? Is it only get it from silage, or there are alternatives?
The alternatives, when you think about the cows, if you're keeping your animals, things like planting, fodder, like, of course, the desmodium, high in protein. And desmodium needs such small, places to grow. You can grow it actually as a hedge. When you think about lucena is a shrub. It's very good for the cows to have it as fodder. It fixes nitrogen, and when you think about, of course, the napier grass we keep talking about, And also, we have to just think outside our, box.
What about us as humans? Do we have alternatives for animal proteins?
Yes, we do. Like as we know, like many of us who keep chicken, yeah, when you think about the protein we have in our feeds, we are mainly putting in the omena. But do you know now we have new options that most farmers need to actually take advantage of? I'll give you two, very easy one. One is the crickets. There was a big like research done by JQuat on how to keep crickets. And they're really trying to get many farmers to actually keep their own crickets, and they train you and they sell the eggs. So we can be able to actually have our own crickets, grow them on our farms, and actually crush them as powder and mix in the feeds for the animal protein. Something else that we can be able to think about is the black soldier flies. Yeah? I'm sure many of us are wondering, what is a black soldier fly? When you go to, where the cows are, yeah? Yes. Like in the cow shed, you normally see these very, very fat flies. We used to call them, they're blue and green easy, eh? Now, at the larval stage, they normally have the maggots. Those maggots are very high in protein. And when you look at, like, local universities, they have done research on those black soldier flies. The thing is for us just to access that information and learn how to make, to breed the flies and have more of the maggots and use them in our animal feeds. And that way, we are going to be saving our lakes and our oceans, instead of, thinking of that's the only option, but actually come up with our own small, and that one, by the way, can be used by any small-scale farmers. Even those who have 10, 20 chicken can still do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So technology is welcomed,
Yes.
but we need to look for alternatives of making this, the cost of feed, bringing it lower,
Exactly.
so that every farmer can afford it. That is all we had for you today on This Week in Agriculture. Thank you, Sylvia, for joining us today and giving us your insights on all these stories. Until next time, I'm Philip Keitang. Goodbye.